So thanks for the organizer to giving me this opportunity to speak here. So the topic is a random walk on periodic flag variety. But I will speak also on real flag variety. And the theme is action of on projective space, real or periodic projective space, and random action. And one wants to understand the behavior of this random action. And I will explain, as it is well known, but I will recall that this behavior is described thanks to stationary measures. And so the main question which will occur in this talk will be which algebraic homogeneous spaces support stationary probability. Okay, so there will be 4 parts in the talks. First, I will describe the stationary measures on projective space, which will be the main theorem. And I will spend the talk to explain the proof of the theorem. So in the second part, before giving the proof, I will give motivation, why focus on stationary measures. And the proof will be in part 3. And only at the very end, I will speak about flag varieties. So most of the talk, I think, will be very concrete. So the notation will be the following. So I write on the blackboard because it will disappear. So K will be either the field of real or the periodic field. But you can think about the real. And V will be a finite dimensional vector space on K of dimension D. And the space I want to work on is just the projective space, the space of line in V. And for that, in my setting, I have a G, a subgroup of the group of matrices, which is semi-simple. And semi-simple is the main assumption. So it's a semi-simple group, algebraic. And the connected means the connected in the Zariski sense, in the case of QP. And I want to study a random walk on projective space. So I will choose my element according to some law, which will be a probability measure. On this group G, and gamma will be the semi-group generated by the support of this measure. It will be a sub-semi-group of G. And there will be one assumption, which is that during all the talk, which is that gamma is Zariski dense. This means that G is the smallest algebraic group which contains gamma equivalently. Okay, so I will keep this notation for all the talks. That's why they are written here. And then I will define what it was in the title, stationary measures. So a probability measure is stationary. So it's a probability measure nu on the projective space X. And if when I compute the convolution, mu convolution with nu, it does not change nu. It's equal to nu. So the convolution is just an average of the push forward of this probability measure nu by the element of the group G, but chosen with this measure mu. So this means that when you have your random walk on X, if at time n you know your repartition where you are according to some law nu, then at the next time you know where you are according to the law mu convolution with nu. So stationary means that this law does not move, it's stationary. And so it's a convex set, a stationary measure, as everybody knows here, and I will say it's ergodic if it is extremal among the stationary measure. And this point of view, random walk point of view, has a counterpart, in topological counterpart, which is the gamma invariant compact subset. So I will say a compact subset is gamma invariant if, it's for all G in gamma, it's not G in G, it's for LG in gamma. GF is included in F. And it will be said minimal if it is minimal for the inclusion among the closed gamma invariant non-empty compact subset. So those are the definitions. I want to study stationary measure, but as we will see, they are very much related to minimal gamma invariant subset.
You emphasize the case when we support a subject like finite, yeah or no?
Main case, most difficult case, as you say, is when mu is 1/2 Dirac mass in A0 plus Dirac in A1, and A0, A1 are two matrices generating a Zariski-Dunn subgroup. This is the main interesting case. And a nice picture to have in mind is when you have the projective space here, and these matrices act in a proximal way, in a contracting way, form a Schottky subsemi group. So they kind of contract into some parts which are disjoint. So when you iterate the words, you get a limit set which is a counter set. And this counter set has a coding with 0, 1 to the n. And the random walk restricted to this counter set is like the shift here. Oh, yeah. So it's a very important case, but the point is that I will not assume that. I just assume what is here. So the main theorem I want to explain is this one that I write here because I want to keep it. Is that there is a bijection between the set of ergodic mu stationary probability nu on the projective space, and this is in bijection with the minimal gamma invariant compact F in X. If K is R, then what's
Kazhdan, no, it's all Kazhdan equidistribution theorem.
Kazhdan? I'm not aware of Kazhdan I'm not aware of Kazhdan working.
One of his first papers, you know, is exactly where he has two rotations and the uniform distribution and the two rotation of the sphere.
No, those are. No, this is not in the orthogonal group. I am not in the orthogonal group. This is the projective space. It is not rotations. Those are projective transformation. Those are not rotations.
They cannot be rotation, right?
They can be, but I don't assume they are.
This special case, I'm asking.
The special case, in case the group gamma is, yes, in case it is, for instance, it's closure, yeah, it's a closed group. In case gamma is compact, then what I'm saying is very easy.
No, gamma is compact. Gamma is
When gamma is compact, like the group, because gamma, when I say the group, the semigroup generated by the support, I mean the closed semigroup.
I'm closer.
I mean the closed semigroup if you want. Yes. But here in the statement it is the same because I'm looking for compact sets which are gamma invariant.
Particularly if this is closer to the whole thing, the only the invariant measure will be just the standard measure.
Yes. But it is this fact is quite easy.
What you say is generally theorem of Kasdan. In this sense.
No, I think Kasdan might have said something deeper in this case, like more.
I'm not saying this.
Okay.
Kasdan is special case.
Maybe you're right. But, okay. I don't know.
Exactly for me the same second. Yeah, that's special case.
Okay. I'm not so, but okay. I agree. Okay, I will have a look, but I cannot say. So at least what happens is that when you are in the case where k is equal to r, this is in bijection with the compact g orbit in X. But only when the base field is R, you will have this statement. And this is what I want to explain today. So maybe I first explain what is easy in this statement. So I will focus on this bijection here. That, so the bijection is to the stationary measure I associate the support.
Another question. Interlater is Sullivan solution of Alford's conjecture, you know.
Yes.
So doesn't imply also is Sullivan's theorem that there is unique quadratic measure there, you know, in Alford's. Now Alford's conjecture is fully solved. And then the immediate result of Sullivan.
Yeah, I don't think it implies, but no, I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure. What I'm saying just is that this bijection is given to the stationary measure I said its support. So what is clear is that the support is gamma invariant, because by definition of what is stationary, you look at the definition, and this forces the support to be gamma invariant. Another thing which is very easy to check and is that this map from the left to the right is surjective. Each time you have a minimal gamma invariant subset, it is the support of some stationary measure. And the reason is that you just pick a point x on this gamma invariant subset, and you look at the average. You have this average, which start from the Dirac mass at the point x. So you assume that you have the law at time 0, you are in x, and then you look at all the law from time L equal 1 to L equal n of your random walk, and you average. And then you have a sequence of probability measure, and since you live in the compact set of all the probability, there are weak limits for this sequence, and any weak limit is mu stationary and supported by f. And since f is minimal, the support will be exactly f. So it's very easy to see that these two properties, but so what remains to be done is that if you start with some ergodic stationary measure, the support is minimal. And the second thing you have to check is that if you have a minimal set, not only it supports stationary measure, but it supports just one. And you have to put that in perspective with the fact that in general, if you take a nomomorphism of T2, you can construct some of them which are ergodic for the Lebesgue measure, but which are not minimal, like the matrix 2, 1, 1, 1. And also you have to remember that it might be minimal, but not uniquely ergodic, meaning that it might have, in this case, have more than one invariant measure.
Why two-dimensional torque?
Sorry?
Why two-dimensional torque for one-dimensional? This doesn't hold.
I didn't focus on that, so I really thought to. I don't know for the second example. I don't know. I have to. So it was just a remark on the side, and I didn't focus on it. Okay. So, but what is known on this question, and I think it's more what I have in mind, not generalizing Kashdan or Sullivan work, but Furstenberg. Furstenberg studied the case where gamma is proximal. So gamma proximal means that if you look at all the multiple of the element of gamma, and you take the usual closure, so limit, then you can find matrix of rank 1 there. You take the closure in the set of all matrices, and the question, the assumption, proximality, is that in this limit you may have matrices of rank 1. And this was the working assumption of Furstenberg. And when V is irreducible and gamma is proximal, in this case, this set has only one element, that's Furstenberg theorem. So this set also and has only one element, and it's easy to check that this one also. So it's more like a generalization of a Furstenberg result in situation where one expects to have more than one stationary measure. So if you remove the proximality assumption, you just keep the irreducibility assumption. In fact, in the projective space, you can have uncountably many stationary measures. And because once you know this bijection, here you can have uncountably many compact orbits, even if V is irreducible. Okay, so now I would like to, before going to the proof, I would like to explain motivation, why focus on the stationary measures. And so the motivation are random trajectories. So I will explain this motivation and then go back to the proof of theorem 1. So this motivation is I choose a G1, GL, which are matrices, random variable on a probability space, omega BP, which takes their value in the group G, and which are chosen independently, and with this law, mu. And I'm interested in the product GL D1. You see this product occurring inside theorem 2. And so what I'm doing... All definition, V reducible meaning what? Reducible what? As a representation of gamma. Where you use that representation? As a representation of gamma. So V is the representation of gamma? Yes. Or we are okay compactly. And why there is no, where I found and it is delta GT. What is it you want to make me? I explain that, okay? What you want to do is you have P of V. You start with a point, x, and you apply your random walk. So G1x, and then G2, G1x, and so on. So you take this random trajectory, and you look at the Birkhoff average. Here, random meaning like random sequence of G's. GI are random. GI are GI of omega. same distribution. They are independent of low mu. Yes, low mu. All of them have low mu, equidistributed. Of same law mu. Mu is a law. They are chosen according to this law.
Okay, the same law.
Same law. Independent, same law. And so I'm choosing this random trajectory, x, g1x, g2, g1x, and I'm doing the Birkhoff sum. This is exactly what is in the second statement where I introduce this probability measure nu x omega, which is a limit of the Birkhoff sum. And what says the second statement is that for almost every omega, almost every choice, this Birkhoff sum along the random trajectory converge, and the limit is ergodic and mu stationary.
This also true identically? It's only for comparison?
I didn't think identically. I didn't think. Because arguments are very general here. No, these arguments are very general, but we didn't focus on product R by QP, so I would say probably, but I didn't think about that. Okay. Sorry? This is true for QP. This is not true. This is what I will explain at the very end. That this is for R. This part is just for R. That I will explain that the aim of the talk that at the end for the flag variety, which is just one orbit, you will have finitely many stationary measures. So not one, which what would say, but finitely many, so not uncountably many. That's
you can feel if you can relate it to something like T-subtonicity, yeah. There would be measures for each version of T-subtonicity.
My motivation is not TITS, it's really the work of Furstenberg at the very beginning, and then later on Guivarch, Rogy. That's what I will explain.
This exactly, the Guivarch was exactly when some part of the T-subtonicity was put into it.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe. So let me go on. So first, this theorem 2 tells you that the random trajectory, they always converge. Their Birkhoff sum always converge to ergodic and mu stationary measure. And then just above, which is the second line in theorem 2, it's the same statement but in law, where when you write mu convolution L time with the Dirac mass in X, what you are writing is just the average of what is down according to all trajectories. So when you average ergodic and mu stationary, you lose this ergodicity. And so the point in the first statement is that the limit exists. That's this limit is nu x is just the average, what is written in the last line. The limit nu x is just the average of the nu x omega. I just want to say, before going on, one word on sketch of proof of theorem 2. So it relies on the idea of Rogy. Rogy has proven that when you have this random walk, you always have a Markov operator which is associated, which is a transformation on the continuous function, which sends the function phi to its average after deplacing the function phi by the element of G according to low mu. And this is this operator when it is equicontinuous. In fact, theorem 1 and 2 are always satisfied. So it's something in the 90s by Rogy. And the definition of the equicontinuity of an operator is the fact that each time I pick a function phi, a continuous function on X, I look at all its image by p to the n, And this is a sequence of function, and I want this sequence to be a sequence of equicontinuous function on X. So this is the assumption of Rogis theorem. And the dilemma we have to check is that, in fact, when V is irreducible, because this second theorem was under irreducibility assumption. Here, in theorem 1, there is no irreducibility assumption. And theorem 2 was under irreducibility assumption. So if I check when V is irreducible, then P is equicontinuous. So I have proven theorem 1 and theorem 2 for the case V irreducible, but not for the general case. And in fact, one point is that when V is not irreducible, P will not be equicontinuous. So let me explain a little bit and then what means equicontinuous and how you check equicontinuity. So this, I'm reading the idea of proof here of equicontinuity. And you have a sequence Pn applied to phi. And when you compute it as a point x, what you have is just an average of the evaluation of the function phi along the orbit, x, g1x, g2, g1x. And the meaning of this equicontinuity, it's equivalent in fact, is that you are able for a big mass, except if you remove, for every x prime, except if you remove some set of trajectory of a mass smaller than epsilon. If you start with point x prime, then you follow the trajectory, then you will never be at distance more than a constant times the distance you were at the very beginning. This is what you have to check, and this gives clearly the equicontinuity. So it's kind of, what you have to prove is kind of equicontinuity along big mass of random trajectory. That's the main idea. And how do you check that? It's quite easy to check. You just use the formula that the distance from x to x prime, if x is a line and x prime is another line, you just have this formula that it is sorry? For typical orbit, yes. What I'm saying here, it is on a set, the probability where this is true is larger than 1 minus epsilon. And how do you, once you have this formula, you are reduced to prove this, to prove some statement about representation, and which is the following statement that I want to write. For every epsilon, there exists some small constant epsilon, such that for every vector, in my irreducible representation, then the probability, in fact, if you compute the norm, the way the matrix, the random product G1, Gn applied to the vector V grows, then it is really the same as the way the random product grows. So the norm of the matrix have the same size as the norm of the matrix applied to the vector on a set of measure at least 1 minus epsilon. So with these two things, you really get that. So you are reduced to do something in the representation, and which is very important, which is a long trajectory, the way the norm grows is very much related to the way the norm of the matrix applied to some vector grow. We will see it again later in other proof. Okay, now I think I want to switch to the proof of theorem 1. So I'd like to.
Saying the inducible case we have the harmonic transformation of opposite, right? You go to a non-stationary direction and the distance goes to infinity, right?
If V is irreducible.
It's irreducible is almost never true.
Ah, exactly. What happens? Assume you have your representation is sum of two different representations. So your projective space is kind of product of some one component V1 and a second component V2. So let's maybe I write P of V2 and P of V1 here, but and here I am P of V1 plus V2. And assume here the way the norm of the matrix grows in V1 is smaller than in V2. So if you start with a point in the projective space of V2, you will remain in V1, you will remain in V1. Your random walk will remain in V1. But if you start with a point very near here, x and x prime very near, since it has a small component of V2, very soon x prime will go very near P of V2. So starting from points which are very near, always they go far away. So this condition that I wrote in the previous, at the last line of the previous of this slide is not true when it is reducible.
In the unipotent case, you have the same also, the unipotent.
Unipotent. I'm not discussing unipotent here. Everything is here. G semi-simple means my representation is direct sum of irreducible representation. So now I have just the idea of the proof of theorem 1 is to forget about V. So think of this theorem as a theorem which is intrinsic in G and not depending on the representation V in which you are living. The point is that, in fact, the orbit of G, of the group G in the projective space are locally closed. So the ergodic stationary measures are supported on one orbit. So theorem 1 becomes let an algebraic subgroup, which is just the stabilizer of some orbit. And I'm just replacing my projective space by G over H. And this is just a reformulation. It's exactly equivalent. And what happens when k is equal to r? And then what happens is that it's this set, there is this orbit G over H, and this set it contains only one element when G over H is compact, and it is empty if not. So it's reformulation in this case of just one orbit. And so it's exactly what I have written down. That and now I want to prove this theorem 1 under this form. So the way to prove it, so I will just give the proof for k equal r. For QP it's slightly more technical. And maybe I keep that. What do I want to erase? So now my statement is in this semi-simple group, and a semi-simple group has a Iwasawa decomposition. G.
What assumption on mu in this case again? What assumption on mu?
Everything is here.
This assumption.
G is a connected semi-simple algebraic group. Mu is a probability on G. So one point and the semi-group generated by the support is Zariski-Dance in G. And this is theorem 1 I want to prove. Okay. So now I'm trying to give this proof, and this proof is based on the Iwasawa decomposition. So what is Iwasawa decomposition? So I will give an example. When G is SLDR, so this is decomposition K-N, so it's a decomposition which is true for any semi-simple group, and in the case of SLDR, K is the maximal compact, the group of orthogonal transformation, A the group of diagonal matrices of determinant 1, and N the upper unipotent subgroup. And what I want to check, which is the key lemma. So first there is a result due to Givarch and Rogy, which will play a role, and which was the motivation for what we have done here, is that they studied a few years ago the case of the homogeneous space G over AN. So it's a special case of G over H. And in the case of G over AN, they proved the equicontinuity of the Markov operator there, and they were able to deduce so theorem 1 and 2, as I explained. And this case, G over AN, is a case where the homogeneous space is compact, because you have this decomposition G is equal to KAN. So in fact, the main point that remains after this work of Givarch and Rogy was to study the case where G over H is not compact. And to prove when G over H is not compact, there is no stationary measure for real over the real. So this is the key lemma which is written there. Then when G over H supports a stationary measure, then H has to contain a conjugate of AN. It has to contain AN up to conjugate C. And this will imply that G over H is compact. And this is the main point we have to check. So I will do that. I have 7 minutes, so I have 2 steps. One step is to check that it contains N. And the second step is that this isotropic group contains A. So I'm in the process of proving the key lemma, which is that G over H supports mu, mu stationary, implies H contains AN up to conjugate C. So I want to prove it contains AN up to conjugate C. Maybe I will have time to do that. So to prove it contains N up to conjugate C, you have just to put 2 arguments and to compare them. One argument does not use the fact that you have this stationary measure. It's just a general result about random product in semi-simple group, which is due to Goldsched and Margulis, and with previous work of Furstenberg, which is if you take a random word, GN-D1, and you decompose it in the K A plus K decomposition. So there is another decomposition beside the Iwasawa, which is a Cartan decomposition. And the Cartan involves A plus. It's when you impose that the lambda 1 is larger than the lambda n and is positive. And when you decompose your matrix in this K, A plus K decomposition, if you look at the A plus component, which I'll call AN, in fact, AN goes away from the walls. The walls is where the lambda I is equal to lambda I plus 1. So this implies easily that you are in some representation V, that if you renormalize this product, Gn G1 over its norm, then when you take this limit, the matrix you get is just because of the A plus part, because on the left-hand side and right-hand side you have compact. So, and it implies that the matrix you get as an image, which is included in the fixed point of some n prime. N prime is just a conjugate of n by the limit of the k1n. So the information you get is that these limit points, they are fixed by some conjugate of n. But the problem is they might not live on G over H, on the orbit G over H, because this orbit G over H is not closed in the projective space. It's just locally closed. But then you use the fact that you have a stationary measure. When you have a stationary measure, you can associate to your stationary measure, it's classical, a dynamical system, which is the Bernoulli times your space, B cross Y, and with the probability measure beta. So B is just the trajectories, it's G to the n. And the beta is just the product measure, and S is the shift. And on this product B cross I, you have a transformation which shift B, and the letter you have removed, you let it act on Y. G1 is the first letter of B. And but then you have a dynamical system which preserves some probability measure, so you can apply Poincaré recurrence theorem. And then if you start for new almost every point Y, the sequence Gn G1y will have a limit which is just the image of y by pi of y. So it will be, first by recurrence, this limit will be in the same orbit. You don't go outside the orbit. But for what we have seen before, it has to be n prime invariant. Okay? So this is why H has to contain a conjugate of n. And now I would like to explain why H contains the conjugate of A very quickly. Probably I will not have time, but maybe I explain the main idea. The main idea is that if this is not the case, you look at the K-A-N decomposition of H, you replace H by a smaller co-compact subgroup, and then you are reduced to a very specific example of H for which you have to prove that there are no stationary measures on it, which is just if you look at a minimal parabolic P is equal to MAN of G, you just replace the A part by something of codimension 1, A prime. And you look at this G over H. So this G over H is just a line bundle over G over P, which is the flag variety. So, and because it's a line bundle, you can let the action be you act on the basis, which is compact. Z is the flag variety, which is compact, and on the R part, you act by a cocycle, which is a projection of the Iwasawa cocycle. There is a natural cocycle that you construct thanks to the Iwasawa decomposition. And so the action is given that way. And you assume that there is a stationary measure and you want a contradiction. So what do? You just, again, put two arguments in contradiction. One of the arguments, the first three lines, is that if you look at the Cartan projection, along a random trajectory, the Cartan projection is very near, remains at bounded distance from the Iwasawa cocycle. This is a multidimensional version. This is just a rewriting of this formula. This is exactly what is written here. But it is an intrinsic way of writing it. Here I am writing that the norm of a matrix is of the same size as the norm of the matrix applied to some vector. And here I'm writing some function of G1, Gn is at bounded distance from some cocycle. So it's the first is exactly that. And the second part of the argument is to use the same dynamical system that we use in the first step. But with this y, which is the product of z by t, and instead of applying Birkhoff recurrence, you apply Birkhoff ergodic theorem. And applying Birkhoff ergodic theorem, you get this information, which is written here, and you deduce, I have do more than my time, so, and you deduce that you have a statement for almost every t, and what you get because of this equality, that you have something plus t which has to live in some fixed g0. So it cannot be true for many t. The t has to be remain bounded. So the t has to remain bounded, meaning the nu has to have compact support. And then it's not possible. You are reduced to prove the fact which is down, which is that this manifold Y does not contain compact gamma invariant subset, which is a statement which does not involve measure, just topological statements. So you check that, and then you are finished. So, and then I have my last slide, which is the motivation of the title of the talk, which is then if you apply this to the flag variety, so you are back in any local field, and if you apply this to the flag variety, on the flag variety you just have finitely many stationary measures, and the reason is that you apply theorem 1, and you just have to check that there are only finitely many minimal subsets. And it's, again, a topological statement that you can handle with the structure of the Zariski-Dann subgroup. And I just want to say that when k is equal to r, this last theorem, theorem 3, was well known because you can always embed the flag variety in some projective space with V reducible and G proximal for the action of G. And when k is equal to r, Goldstein and Margulis, that I already quoted, prove that this implies that it is gamma proximal. So you can apply Furstenberg and have a unique nu. So in case of r, you have a unique nu. But in case of QP, the group gamma can be open compact. And then you may have more than one orbit of this small open compact group inside G. So you may have more than one stationary measure. And I think I have finished here my talk. Thank you.
Any questions, comments?
Have you thought about what happens in positive characteristics?
In positive characteristics, the only point is about the fact that the representation is not direct sum of irreducible representation. And most of the arguments do not use positive characteristic, but we did not focus precisely on this question. So probably just, I don't know, we did not focus. Okay. It's undable, yeah.
Yeah, so in this situation there is a natural, well, kind of natural stationary measure which one can call harmonic. How are the measures you described in this theorem related to this natural one?
It's difficult to say because I'm describing all of them. So I'm describing all the stationary measures. So I don't. You are saying among them there is one which is better than the other, or? And but depending on the starting point, or depending on what? Depending on what? On the depending on the choice of k, depending on what?
No, it's defined in terms, just in terms of the group K.
And the choice of compact, and the choice of maximal compact subgroup.
No.
No. Okay. So so I don't know the answer. Is it ergodic? This one is ergodic? Yes. Yeah. So I don't know the answer to your question. I don't know. We have to discuss.
Yeah, maybe we can have more question over the let's thank the speaker again.
Thank you.